Welcome to the Cashflow Ninja, the podcast sharing how to create and grow income streams and manage, multiply, and protect your wealth in the new economy. Are you tired of trading your time for money? Do you desire freedom today instead of retirement in 10, 20, or 30 years? I'm MC Laubscher, and this is the Cashflow Ninja. This is Cashflow Ninja. I'm MC Laubscher, and thank you so much for joining me in another episode of the Cashflow Ninja podcast. I appreciate you spending your most valuable resource, your time, once again with me in today's show. Please be sure to check out all of our past episodes at cashflowninja.com. There's over 650 episodes already at cashflowninja.com of me interviewing amazing Cashflow Ninjas on the show, along with community resources and tools. That's at cashflowninja.com. I've got a fantastic show for you today with a returning guest, Doug Casey. Doug Casey is a legendary investor with so many popular books and famous books. Very well known book is The International Man, and also Crisis Investing, which we might find ourselves in another time period where we can draw from the experience and the lessons of the book of Crisis Investing to apply to the times that we find ourselves in today. In my hands, I have the best-selling book ever in the country of Rhodesia. I have with me today the author of this book, Doug Casey. Fantastic book, and all of Doug's books are phenomenal. He's got another book out, by the way, Assasin, which I'm sure he's going to share a little bit more about today. It's the third book in the series, which I highly recommend. I'm anticipating my copy to arrive any day soon now, and looking forward to that. But great to see you again, Doug.
Thanks, MC. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm speaking to you right now from the People's Republic of Aspen, Colorado.
Beautiful part of the world.
Listen, I can complain about this place being absolutely chock-a-block with socialists and Biden supporters, but it could be worse. I could find myself in the ghetto in Detroit, so no complaints.
So you're up in the States visiting for some business. You've got a fantastic new book out, Assasin. Do you want to share a little bit about the book? There you go. That you did with John Hunt. The third one in the Highground Series, correct?
Yeah. The first one, we're tracing our hero, Charles Knight, from age 23. We're up to book 3 now. So first book, Speculator, talks about gold mining, speculation, and bush wars in Africa. Second one, Druglord, where he gets into the drug business and gets into a lot of trouble. He's put in jail for 2 years, which is where Assasin starts out with. He's doing 2 years of hard time. And after they steal his money again. So now he's pissed off, and he decides that there are some people that just need killing. Some bad actors that you just have to remove them. So this book, Assasin, a lot of people are going to think it's about Trump. It's not, incidentally, although it's set in the here and now. Essentially, it's a morality tale. Is it right or wrong, good or evil, to engage in political assassination? A lot of discussion of that. People don't talk about, is it really right or wrong to kill somebody in high government office? And then we talk about techniques of doing it, and we talk about whether it's actually practical. In other words, is it like pulling shark's teeth? And then from here, this book, which is actually quite good because I've been reading it as a reader as opposed to a writer or an editor. And I'm really pleased. It's, I think we've outdone the Jack Reacher novels and the C.B. Box novels and all that, because it's got lots of really interesting data in it, in addition to having a hell of a story, which will continue later in the next book, where he's accused of being a terrorist, which is a real naughty thing to be accused of in today's world. So anyway, buy Assassin. It's on Amazon today.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, because terrorist too. I mean, you're either a freedom fighter or a terrorist, right? Whichever label you put on, they put on you.
Yeah, or maybe if you're neither, you're at least a rebel, which is kind of in between freedom fighter and terrorist.
Yeah, I really enjoy what you've done with these taboo topics. That those topics will be very tough to engage people on and have a philosophical and moral discussion about it. Because if you start someone and say, "Well, let's talk about drug dealing," as you covered in the previous novel or this one, political assassination, it's not very palatable for the majority of folks. You've done a great job in just bringing it in a very enjoyable manner, having you look at it and questioning a lot of this, right?
You know, MC, this is why, although Aspen's a very social place, I'm rarely, actually never, invited to dinner parties because I can do 5 minutes on the weather, the state of the roads, and sports. Okay, now let's talk about something interesting, and that means philosophy. And when you talk about philosophy, what is practically, I'll talk to the person, let's talk about some philosophical issues. And they'll say, yeah, I love philosophy. They all say that. But what is practical and applied philosophy? Well, it is either politics or religion, the two things that you're never supposed to talk about. So I like to amuse myself. I don't amuse my dinner companions often because their views are very collectivist, very statist, very liberal. And anyway, listen, I like to have fun.
And it brings up an interesting point of where we are now. I'd remark earlier, one of our conversations when you were down in Uruguay was, I believe it was 2 years ago when they had another Supreme Court nominee hearing, which was a complete circus. And here we are having another one on top of another election. It feels like every year there's an election almost, or when this one's done, you'll enter another election cycle after another election cycle. But it seems like there's a big battle between these ideas, what you just mentioned, the collectivism, which have basically swallowed the globe, versus the freedom-seeking, freedom-loving folks that are producers and creators. Are the producers and creators fighting a losing battle here? What are your take on things?
Yes, I'm afraid that we are. I hate to say that, but we're in the position of people in the Roman Empire in the 4th century, where it's clear that it was falling apart from the inside, not to mention the barbarians at the gate. I mean, that wasn't the real problem. But look, trends in motion tend to stay in motion until they reach a crisis where anything can happen. And right now, we here in the United States are at a crisis that is similar to that of France in 1789. And let me hasten to add that I would have been happy to see Louis XVI overthrown, except he was replaced by Robespierre and then Napoleon. It got worse. Or a crisis like in Russia in 1917. I would have been happy to get rid of Nicholas II. Except then they got Lenin, and then they got Stalin, or the Great Cultural Revolution in China in 1966. That's what we're going through right now in the US. It's dangerous, and the issue is in doubt. But the trend has been down for civilization for so long. I'm not talking about technology. That's gotten better and better, thank God. But civilization, I'm afraid that things are going to take a turn for the worst in this election. I put a money bet on Trump. I bet 100 ounces of silver with Marin Katusa in 2016 that Trump was going to win, and I won. Just a gentleman's bet. But this time I won't make that bet. I think that we're going to see the Harris regime as of November sometime.
And that's going to have a different little impact there. I mean, one of the things that I think we had in one of our previous discussions too was, as you mentioned, the war has sort of been lost, because if you look at younger folks today, you see all the studies out there about, X percentage, a very high number. I don't remember quite the exact accurate number, but
50%, I think you're going to.
Yeah, way over 50% think socialism is a good idea, and they've completely gone to the other side. So how do you how do you restore certain core values? Well, it's very, very tough to do that through the education system, but it's completely been taken over by the socialists. So that, and now the new, the trend stays in motion until it basically goes and crashes. So what are some of the things that you're seeing happening post-election? Like with every election, half the country's very, very happy. The other half is very, very unhappy. And then there are folks trying to figure out how to position themselves and what to make of this. What are you seeing happening post-election?
We're going to be lucky if we don't get an actual civil war.
Life settlement investments have allowed financial and banking institutions to not only buy their equity contractually, but also diversify their capital from any economic, market, and geopolitical risk. It's been part of the billion-dollar blueprint followed by institutional investors. And if you're an accredited investor, you can also now participate in this vehicle with enormous growth potential. You can watch an informational webinar presented by one of the premier organizations providing life settlement investments, Penumbra Solutions, at cashflowninja.com/life settlements.
The best case, since people in so-called blue and red counties, they actually hate each other. There's not going to be any happy Thanksgiving dinners, because unless everybody shares the same exact political views, there are going to be arguments, even at Thanksgiving dinner, on pleasantry. So the best case is that the country parts, these different areas part company with each other. If they don't part company, that means one is going to try to take over the government in Washington, D.C. and impose its will on the other. And that is not going to be very pleasant at all. I mean, look, they say we had a civil war in the US from 1861 to 1865, but it wasn't a civil war. It was a failed secession movement. The South just wanted to go their own way. And we can talk about how slavery gets brought into this. That was actually had very little to do with the Civil War, or I should say the war between the states, because it wasn't a civil war, actually. It was a war of secession. I don't know what we'll have this time, a war of secession or a civil war, but you can't have two antagonistic cultures with antagonistic beliefs living in the same political unit, especially at a time which is so highly politicized, where everybody thinks that it's all about what the government does. The government's got to do this, the government's got to do that, the government's going to save me, the government's going to kiss everything and make it better. The spirit of the century, I'm afraid, is running against us.
Yeah. No, it is certainly scary, and a lot of folks listening to us and listening to our show definitely want the government just to get out of the way so we can build our businesses and innovate and produce products and services which the market appreciates and enjoys, and lets us know whether they do like it or not, or want it or not. So in the wealth game, one of the things that I've learned from you too is, especially where we are now, and maybe you want to comment on that in the economy, is you want to be one of those folks that really focuses on preservation of it and protecting it, because in a chaotic cycle, it's a great equalizer of wealth and distributor of wealth. Where do you see we are right now? Because the election obviously has taken the eye off of it. We haven't really touched on the whole the virus episode and the theatrics and the response and how that's played into the economy. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that and what you see. I know you had mentioned we've been in the eye of the hurricane for a while. Where do you see us now? And maybe comment on the economy and things you're seeing there.
Well, in 2008, I said that we were entering the Greater Depression, which is going to be much worse, much longer lasting, and much different from the unpleasantness of 1929 to 1946. So we've just left the eye of this hurricane, this very large eye, where the government poured trillions of dollars on the water, oil on the water. And now we're really in for something. I don't know now that, well, I guess they're going to start up throwing money at people again so they can pay their rent, because there's going to be millions of people that can't pay their rent and haven't been paying it, incidentally. They're going to have to start paying it up and catch up, because the landlord's got to pay the mortgage to the bank. He's got to pay his taxes to the government. He's got to pay utilities. So that can't go on forever. So I don't know what they're going to do when there's millions of people that can't pay their rent or can't pay their mortgage at the same time as bankrupt local governments are going to be raising real estate taxes, because obviously everybody that owns real estate's a rich guy. And how are they going to pay the utilities? Because utility companies actually have to buy oil and coal and gas and things like that and pay their workers. So what's going to happen there? So what the government's going to do is it's going to create trillions more dollars, and it doesn't matter whether it's Harris and Biden or Trump. They both are committed, both philosophically and out of necessity, they think, to creating more and more money. So it's going to destroy the dollar. It's going to crank even greater distortions into the economy, which are going to have to be unwound. And we're going to have all kinds of civil ruckus here, both from people that have lost everything they had, lost their businesses, that capital's wiped out. Now they don't know what to do, can't get a job. Look, this is the biggest thing as far as I'm concerned. This depression, I'm just talking the economics now, is going to be the biggest thing since the founding of this country. And this is a watershed where everything could change. This is much bigger than 911.
Yep.
This is serious.
This brings me and leads me into that question. When you have the International Monetary Fund looking at all of this and going, we need to have a new Bretton Woods agreement over the past week. I mean, they're seeing this massive unraveling, because we've been having these conversations, and you've been talking about this for years. I mean, even on the Phil Donahue show, when you brought up the book Crisis Investing, talking about how unsustainable all of this is. It looks like we're here, and I think people are getting scared if they're looking and saying, guys, I think we need to sit down and we just basically need to sign a new agreement and organize, start anew or do something different. It seems like a lot of folks are reaching for the panic button.
Well, they should be, actually, because something that has been inevitable for a long time, and actually Western civilization itself has been declining since the start of the First World War. And it's been declining at an accelerating rate as we've been more and more politicized. So now the inevitable has become the imminent. And I don't know if they can wring one more good time Charlie boom out of this or not. I kind of hope Trump wins. As much of an economic disaster, we can talk about why. I mean, the good things and the bad things that Trump has done. Because at least maybe we'll have 4 years of possible Indian summer, where at least he'll keep a lid on the volcano for 4 years. But where you've gotten kind of like your final warning before it hits the fan. But I don't know, what should you do right now is the question, perhaps. I mean, we can talk about what you should do with your money, what you should do with yourself, where you should do it. I've thought about this. I've come up with answers. I don't know if they're the right answers. I hope they are. Well,
yeah, I would love to hear some ideas.
I hope we go back to, Happy Days and Father Knows Best and Ozzie and Harriet and stuff like that. But we're not. But I hope we do.
Yeah, I would love to hear some of those ideas that you have of what could people be doing in a time like this to protect themselves and their families physically, their financial wealth. I mean, there's a lot. This is a time unlike. I know people say that, but I think as you mentioned, this is going to be a massive next 6 months, next year.
Yeah, and right now this is still kind of, even though we've entered the storm, things are still fairly mellow right now, except for some riots in places like Portland and Kenosha. And there'll be lots more if Trump wins on November 3rd, I'm sure. So what should you do? As far as I'm concerned, the world is now highly politicized, much more than it's been in the past, where everybody relies on the government and thinks the government is the answer to their questions. So as big as your economic and financial dangers are today, your political risks are even greater. Therefore, you should try to diversify yourself politically. Now, if you're in a position to do so financially, you should have a crib outside of your home country. Wherever your home country is, it doesn't matter. You should have something in the next political jurisdiction where things might be mellower. You don't want to be trapped like a lobster, because they're going to lock all these countries down with foreign exchange controls and the rest of it. So if you can diversify internationally, good. Do it now while you still can. If you can't diversify internationally, then I would look to move to a small town. And I say that both because it's economically smart and it's sociologically smart. I mean, my friend James Altucher, I don't know if you know him or not, he said, New York is a dead duck and I'm moving out. And he's a lifelong New Yorker. Well, I don't know if New York is going to get as bad as that movie with Kurt Russell, Escape from New York. A great movie, incidentally. I enjoyed it.
Right.
But listen, if these idiots like de Blasio and Cuomo keep doing stupid things and locking down tighter and tighter, if you have any money or sense, you get the hell out of New York. It's impossible. There's nothing to keep you there. No restaurants, no theater, no arts. But you got, bums in the street and taxes going. Get the hell out. Yeah, it'll be like Escape from New York, or God forbid, like Mad Max. So move to a small town. Now here I am in the People's Republic of Aspen, Colorado. We're not going to have BLM people marching in the streets. That's not going to happen. But I don't like the ambiance of this town anymore. I mean, it's full of people that, as long as I've been here now, there's too many of these lefties that don't like me, and I don't like them. So maybe I'll transplant to Wyoming or someplace, I don't know where. So you ought to think of doing that, no matter where you are. If you're living in the suburbs of Chicago, get the hell out. Suburbs of New York, get the hell out. Los Angeles, get the hell out. All these states are awful, and the cities that you might be living near. You don't need to look at, we're talking, are we on Skype or Zoom? I forget.
Zoom.
Works perfectly. Also, this COVID hysteria is destroying the social fabric of the US. Because here in Aspen, I'm a member of 2 luncheon groups that have been around for decades. And I think they've ceased to exist and they won't come back. So the social bonding between the guys that came to that, it's gone. It's gone. Yeah. And my Monday poker group, it's gone. I don't think it's coming back. And this is happening all over the country with Rotary clubs and Kiwanis and Optimists, things like that. I mean, a lot of them are just not going to make it for all kinds of reasons. So I'd move to a small town if you're going to stay in your own country, quite frankly.
Definitely for physical safety, and like we've been talking about the massive trend in real estate of folks moving to smaller towns because, we almost, one of the things I think that COVID has done is almost fast forwarded the world in certain areas 10 years into the future, because we would have been working remotely and virtually in 10 years, everyone, right? The studies show people are happier, more productive, the employers gain more benefit from it. Everyone has healthier, better, well-balanced, and more productive employees. So.
And look at the bright side. The fact that these corrupt teachers' unions have kept the schools from opening, to me, this is a good thing, because your kids won't be indoctrinated by these morons for 8 hours a day. It gives you a chance to homeschool them and actually discuss subjects that they're supposed to be studying instead of sitting bored in a desk surrounded by other young yahoos listening to a moron, in most cases, not all, yap at them with politically correct stuff. So hopefully it's going to destroy the infrastructure of education in this country. Do you know that the average cost nationwide of educating a K through 12 student is $12,000 a year?
Shocking.
That's insane. And it all goes to administration and paper pushers and things like that. Unnecessary.
MC Lobster here, the creator of the Cashflow Ninja and Cashflow Coach at Producers Wealth, where we help our clients integrate infinite banking with their business and investments. To learn how you can create your own banking system to turbocharge your investments and business in 30 days or less, go to yourownbankingsystem.com. That's yourownbankingsystem.com.
Socrates didn't need the equivalent of $12,000 a year to walk around and discuss ideas and concepts and the knowledge they had then. We should go back to that as much as possible, or form a little union with people that are like-minded of neighbors, and you can hire an Oxford graduate who's if you can find one that's ideologically sound, to tutor 5 or 6 kids at the same cost that's being spent to inculcate young chimpanzees. So there are bright sides to all this too.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that we cannot learn online, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about you too. Just picking up on skills and learning online. It's a whole new world where you can learn anything that you want online.
Exactly, with the best instructors in the world. And if you go to a school, even if it's a university, and you have the best instructor in the world and he gives a lecture, well, your mind might wander and your notes won't be good. But if that is on video, you can listen to it again and again until you absorb what you need and want to. So this is a bright side, a real bright side. Yeah. I hope it disbands the whole rotten university and school system all over the world.
Yeah, if you're looking to build a business and an online business, you can find someone online that's built multi-million-dollar businesses actually themselves, and you don't find yourself, what was that movie, Rodney Dangerfield, where he goes back with his son to college and sitting down and the professor's trying to tell him how to start a business.
Another example of a movie was Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he's brought up and homeschooled on a desert island, and he looks like Arnold, and he's a genius. And meanwhile, Danny DeVito grows up in the New York schools, and he looks like Danny DeVito, and he's got bad ethics. And so really, lots of advantages from many, many points of view to homeschooling.
Yeah, I think the education trend is something definitely to jump on. And for entrepreneurs looking for opportunities in this new disruptive world, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities to disrupt education. And I think folks can expect a lot of these tax-free hedge fund entities known as colleges and universities to disappear shortly. So you've mentioned to diversify yourself internationally. Make sure that you're physically safe out of hot pockets, cities, areas, and so forth. On the money side and the economy side, it's gonna be pretty brutal and pretty wild. What can folks do there? We touched on the Bretton Woods Agreement. We've seen now, countries coming out with cryptocurrencies, so there might be new things entering there. There's a lot of uncertainty in the financial world. What are some of the things that folks should be looking at doing to potentially protect themselves?
Well, I think the stock market could go higher as they create trillions and trillions more dollars. A lot of it's going to keep flowing into that. But that said, I still don't want any part of the stock market. It's a bubble. It's a huge bubble at this point. So dump your mutual funds. The only thing certain about a mutual fund is that it's going to lose 1 to 2% per year in value for management fees and such. So dump that, get out of the bond market. That's a triple threat to your capital. You've got interest rate risks, which are only going up, which means your bonds are going down. You've got credit risk, which means that things could be defaulted on and will be in this over-indebted world. And you've got currency risk. The dollar's turning to toilet paper. So where you ought to be is gold. And I hate to say that with gold at 1900, but it's going a lot higher because it's the only financial asset that's not simultaneously somebody else's liability. So that's where you should be. And gold mining stocks as a speculative vehicle, I expect from current levels, they're going to go 10 to 1, which is typical. In the 5 gold mining stock bull markets since 1971, when gold was freed up, we've had 5, and the average rise of junior producers and exploration stocks and developers was 10 to 1, with some going 100 to 1, and some, believe it or not, going 1,000 to 1. You have to get lucky to get those. But you should own a lot of gold stocks right now. So that's the investment advice. And forget about being an employee. That's over. You got to find goods and services that you can provide as an entrepreneur. You can do it. Everybody can do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's, we talked about how the world's going to change how we work. I mean, unless you're working for a tech giant and the pool for that is done, they're hiring remotely. So now, instead of competing with a small talent pool in San Francisco, you're now competing with the world, basically, because all of their employees are global. No, absolutely. If there ever was a time to start something and to build a business, and to figure out what people are gonna need. What are some ideas and things you're looking at there, Doug? Because you're always ahead on these things too. What do you think people will need more of in the coming years?
Well, I'm not sure. The market has to tell me. And I'm not looking for those things right now. I basically just deal in securities as opposed to starting businesses per se. Yeah. Look, if you have a listener in his 20s, certainly, or 30s, you want to go someplace where you're not on a level playing field. I don't like level playing fields. Everybody says, oh, you want a level playing field. Well, I don't want a level playing field. I want one that's tilted in my advantage, where I got the high ground. So if you're a young guy, and better a young guy than a young girl, to be quite candid, I'd go to Africa, because you go there, you've automatically got knowledge and experience, capital that the locals don't have. And you land there, you're different, you're from afar, they all want to get to know you. And you could move up the pecking order real quickly. Whereas if you stay in the US, there's 1 million, there's 10 million other guys just like you. So get on a plane. And that's where the opportunity is now. It's like the Wild West in the US 150 years ago. That's where you go. That's where I'd make my fortune today, quite frankly.
And talk about entrepreneurs. Just growing up in South Africa and seeing what folks are up to there, and in the rest of Africa too. There's a lot of amazing entrepreneurs in those countries that might be looking for a partner that can help them grow and scale businesses, which they are not able to do on themselves because they don't necessarily have, let's just say, collateral, right? Someone in the townships of South Africa that's building a business might not have the assets to place as collateral to be able to scale a business that he's involved with.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, they have foreign exchange controls there. And that's something that you can take advantage of, because a lot of people feel trapped in South Africa, want to get out. Well, at the same time, you might find a good entrepreneur in a township and want to get in, so you can do each other some good there. Although I don't think South Africa would be my first choice. No. It's got too many problems because of the racial situation. To my way of thinking, the shallow end of the pool in Africa would be Namibia, actually.
A lot of great things about Namibia, and there's actually some of my high school and university friends that have moved there, and they love it. They love the country, the people. It's also another beautiful part of the world.
It's the size of Texas with only 2 million people.
Yeah, and talking about a high ground, not a level playing field, and yeah, makes perfect fit. Definitely fits into that. Some of the other industries. One industry that you were also ahead of the curve was the marijuana industry, and what do you see happening there? Do you think that governments are finally going to start to realize that there's a lot of potential taxes that could be collected on a federal scale in the United States?
No question that marijuana is going to be legalized nationally in the U.S., as it is in many states right now. I mean, here in Colorado, I can walk downtown and there's a half a dozen pot stores here in the small town of Aspen. But it's going to go to psilocybin, and it's going to go to ayahuasca and ibogaine, and all these things are eventually going to be legalized, as they should be, for many, many reasons.
Life settlement investments have allowed financial and banking institutions to not only buy their equity contractually, but also diversify their capital from any economic, market, and geopolitical risk. It's been part of the billion-dollar blueprint followed by institutional investors. And if you're an accredited investor, you can also now participate in this vehicle with enormous growth potential. You can watch an informational webinar presented by one of the premier organizations providing life settlement investments, Penumbra Solutions, at cashflowninja.com/life settlements.
But as an investor, as a speculator, I think the bloom is off the rose, quite frankly. There was a bubble in pot stocks a couple of years ago where there were hundreds of little publicly traded pot companies, and it's, most of them just aren't going to make, or didn't make it. And so now it's a business as opposed to a speculative opportunity. Although maybe if there's somebody that comes up that's got a great little psilocybin company, or, that's got micro doses of LSD that it knows how to, good speculative opportunity, but I'm not looking at that now. That's kind of come and gone.
Yeah.
It's a growth business, but it's not like a bubble for speculation. Because some of those pot stocks went to 100 to 1.
Yeah, there was a lot of gains made in that. Speaking of another area that governments are going to have to react to, I want to get your take on this, is the cryptocurrencies, which I know years ago someone came down to visit you at Estancia, the Cafajete, with an actual Bitcoin, a coded Bitcoin. So you were introduced to this way early too. Some thoughts on that. Now that governments are going to issue their own cryptocurrencies, do they coexist? Is this now a battle of wills? Do you think that they outlaw some of this? What are some of your thoughts?
Everything that government does, because it's pure force and coercion, government is not a good thing. The state is not a good thing. But they're all going to get into their own cryptocurrency equivalents, where, already we don't use change, nickels, dimes, and quarters. I mean, nobody even picks up a quarter when you see it laying on the street because it's worth nothing. So they're going to stop minting them soon. And then they're going to stop minting $100 bills because only bad guys use that. Drug dealers and tax evaders and money launderers, none of which are bad things in my opinion, but another question. All your money is going to be digitized on your smartphone. And this is a disaster from the point of view of personal freedom. It means that the government knows everything about what you're buying and what you're selling and what you have. You got no privacy. They'll promote it as, it'll make it easy for us to give $1,000 to everybody under modern monetary theory, another fraud. But if they don't like you, they can cut you off. If you're an enemy of the state, you don't have any money. There's no cash, So what are you going to use as money? You're screwed. And China is going to that very rapidly. Sweden is one European country going to it rapidly. I mean, so I'm all for Bitcoin and private cryptocurrencies, but not the state currencies. Stay away from them if you possibly can. They're a nightmare, disaster from the point of view of personal freedom.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things too. If you look at, and there was actually a bill proposed, and of course, in true fashion, the title of these bills are just amazing to read. It makes for great comedy. But it's something like the Banking Fairness Act or something, which included a digital dollar wallet that would be assigned. And of course, they would be able to take taxes directly from that wallet and so forth. So it's baked into the cake, unfortunately, and it looks like we're being corralled, the herd, into this crawl, which I don't think is going to be a lot of too much fun for a lot of folks when we do end up in there.
Well, it is a problem because, unfortunately, due to the education system and because of all the corporations are in back of this and NGOs are in back of it and all the deep state guys are pumping it and the media is pumping these bad ideas, I'm afraid that the average person is going to go along with it, and we're going to turn out to be black sheep or lone wolves. And it's not good to be a lone wolf because the whip dogs are going to hunt you down. So this is troubled times that we're entering right now. Best you can do is try to get as much money and capital as you can put together in safe places so that you can insulate yourself from these things so you're not too adversely affected by mass hysteria and mass stupidity.
Doug, thank you so much for coming on the show again and just sharing your knowledge and helping my listeners and my viewers out there prepare for this extremely, extremely chaotic period that we're going to live through. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for providing so much value as always again, and I love it that we always have our conversations during very interesting times, and in between the conversations so many things tend to happen around the world, so it's great to catch up. Before I forget, definitely want to share with everyone that Doug has got a new YouTube channel out that I am a massive fan of. Every day on this YouTube channel, there's content that he publishes where he shares a topic or an idea or a concept and shares his thoughts around it and about it. It's very entertaining, very insightful. I would highly recommend everyone check this out. It's been a lot of fun to watch. And of course, his new book, Assasin, the third book in the Highground series, is available on Amazon.com. Definitely check out his book. If you haven't read his two previous novels in that series, Speculator, Drug Dealer, I would highly recommend those as well. All of the stuff that he puts out is quite amazing. And of course, check out internationalman.com and kcresearch.com. Thank you so much for again spending your most valuable resource, your time with me on the show. And please check out all of our past episodes at cashflowninja.com along with tools and resources for our community. Until next time, live infinitely.
This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The information being presented and considered does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation, and it does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax and legal advisor or other qualified professionals, and you should not use the information in place of a customized consultation with a licensed professional regarding your specific personal financial objectives, situation, and needs. We believe the information provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness, or completeness.